Hello and welcome. This is Jenna from McGuire. I'm so glad you stopped by. In this video, I'm going to share some fun spins on an oldie but goodie technique, and that is masking. So I'm going to use masking to create clean, crisp images, colorful backgrounds, and a bit of texture. I'll be creating these 3 cards that you see here, plus a bonus doggy card at the end of this video. So let's go ahead and take a look at the products that I'm focusing on here at the beginning, and that is the pumpkin and greeting set. These are new from Sunny Studio. This is the Sunny Studio Pretty Pumpkin set. This is a fantastic layering set because when you stamp all the layers, you get a very realistic looking image because it leaves some white highlights. Also, I'm using the Sunny Studio Autumn Greeting set. This is a small one, so the price point is great. And although these are kind of autumn focused, you can use them all year round, such as much gratitude, thanks for your kindness, and even the message that says wishing you a season of blessings, you can just do wishing you blessings. So it's a beautiful set and I'm really excited about it. Let's start with this card. Notice there is a circular area with an embossed frame and some inking. To create that, I used 2 dies from this Hero Arts Circle Infinity die set. I'm just using 2 dies that are next to each other in size. And here I've got my stamps and I'm kind of planning out where I'm going to do all my stamping and embossing. I find that really helpful to me. I'm using a MISTI stamping tool today since I'm making multiple cards, but you could do all of this stamping with an acrylic block. Now notice my MISTI has white rulers on it. They now sell white and like a turquoise color sticker that you can put over your ruler so that it's no longer pink. And I thought white would be fun because that way I can see if there's any ink on the ruler, which sometimes I get ink there and I end up smearing it onto my card. Okay, so now I've planned out where I'm going to stamp my pumpkin onto my white cardstock piece. This white cardstock piece is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I like to start with the most solid area when I'm doing layering. That way I can really center and plan where the final image will be. And I'm stamping this with an Altenew Sunkissed ink. This is a light tangerine color and it's really beautiful. And I'm making 2 cards at the same time, by the way, so you'll see me every once in a while switch to go to the second piece. So now that I've done the base layer, it's time for the next layer. In this one, I'm going to stamp in the Altenew Orange Cream ink. And I really wanted to make sure I line this up carefully. So I went to the Sunny Studio website and they have a key for layering this up nicely. So I'm going to kind of follow that, but it actually is very easy to line up thanks to those white curve lines that you see in the first image. So once I have the second image lined up, I'm stamping this in that orange cream ink and you can see our pumpkin starting to take shape. Now I have the last layer all lined up with the first stamped images, and I'll stamp this one in Altenew firebrick ink. Now once I've done this, I thought that first orange ink was a little bit too light. I wanted it to be a little bit darker. So what I did is I went back to that first most solid image, and I'm stamping it again with another layer of that sun-kissed ink right on top. So I'm really just making it a little bit darker, and check out the difference. It really does help to make those colors kind of blend together. Once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that just so that the inks don't keep blending with each other. Now I'm doing the little stem and I'm using 2 shades of Gina Design green ink, and these lay up very easily and we have a very realistic pumpkin when we're done. I think one of the things that makes the Sunny Studio layered images look so realistic is that there are some areas of white. See that at the top of the pumpkin? Those add like a highlight look that I think really makes it pop. Okay, so next it's time for our sentiment. I want to make sure I do my sentiment straight. So I have this printed transparency grid that I lay right over my stamped piece. And I want to make sure that I get that center line lined up with the center of my pumpkin. And now I'm putting the thanks for your kindness image right on top, using the grid lines to make sure it's straight. Now I can close my MISTI door and then I can go ahead and stamp this. I'm stamping this with a black VersaFine ink. This is a pigment ink that stamps really nice and crisp. And then I'll add some clear embossing powder and heat set it. This will give me a nice shiny image that will resist the ink that we're about to put on top of it. Now when I was doing this, I noticed I got some fingerprints of ink, which I do often with my VersaFine ink. That's okay, just let it dry or heat set it. Then go in with a mono sand eraser and just sand the ink away. If you just have a little bit of the ink on the surface of your paper, it's easy to sand away. And you could use either of these sand erasers. I use them both in videos and they both work great. Okay, so now it's time to do that impression that you see. You see the circle embossed lines that are done in the white cardstock? We're going to start with that and then do our inking. So I'm taking those same two dies that I shared with you before, and I'm putting a little piece of tape on the back of it. So these are on the back of the dies. I just got them lined up nicely. And I'm going to tape that onto the front of our card with a piece of micropore tape that'll easily come off. Now I've set up my big shot so that I can do my embossing. So I'm setting it up as I would an embossing folder, but instead I'm going to use an embossing pad. That's what this brown piece is here. Highly recommend this tool. It's very inexpensive. All I need to do is lay my paper with the dies on it, and then I put a piece of scrap typing paper on top, and then the cutting plate. The reason I did that scrap piece of thin typing paper is I wanted to protect my stamping and make sure that I didn't have any blemishes on my cutting plate. So now I've made an impression with those two circle dies. Really like doing that. Next, it's time to do that green inking, but we need to mask our pumpkin and mask off that circle area. So I have some Inka-Dinka-Doo masking paper, and I'm going to take the smaller of our two circle dies and cut that from masking paper. I only really need the bottom of the circle since that's all I'm inking. Now I also have the coordinating pumpkin die, and I've cut that from masking paper also. Now to make sure I get the mask perfectly centered over the pumpkin, I'm taking the negative space of the mask, lining it up around the pumpkin. Then I'll take the pumpkin mask itself and pop it right into the center. This way I can be sure that the pumpkin mask is perfectly positioned on top of our stamped pumpkin. Now I can remove the negative space and we're ready to go. Now I'm going to take our little circular mask here and line it up with the inside embossed circle line. And then we can do our inking. Now you can use any ink here. You could use dye ink, you could use pigment ink, you could use distress ink. I'm using distress oxide ink simply because I like how it blends. So I'm lightly applying some twisted citron towards the bottom of our circle, working our way up. I wanted to kind of tone down that bright green, so I went in with a little bit of peeled paint distress oxide ink also, and kind of blended that over it. Now this has a little bit of a pigment property to it, so I'm going to make sure that I am careful with this ink until it's completely dry. Now I can remove my masks, and I'm going to use a dry cloth to kind of wipe off our heat embossed area and check out how beautiful that is. Now remember how I was doing two stamped pieces? For the other one, I wanted to do some blue blending on top and see how that would look. So I have done the same thing. I embossed those two circles. This time I cut the smaller circle from a piece of masking paper, complete circle, because we're going to ink from both the top and the bottom. Now I have my pumpkin mask that I'm placing right over our pumpkin stamped image. Sorry, my head gets in the way there. Remove that negative space that just helped me to line it up. And now I'm going to apply some green ink towards the bottom, once again, just like I did before. But this time I'm going to come in with Broken China Distress Oxide ink and apply that from the top down. Now remember, we cut this mask with the coordinating die for the pumpkin. So the mask is going to be slightly bigger than our stamped image. So what will happen is we'll end up with this white halo around our stamped image, and I think it is really cool. It allows our image to really shine and kind of highlight it. So now I can remove my mask, and we have this beautiful blue and green inking and a nice white halo or frame around our pumpkin, and then the embossed circles around that. So we end up with a very clean and simple looking card. So I wanted to give this some dimension, so I trimmed our stamped piece down to about 4 by 5 1/4, put a piece of white craft foam behind it, and added it to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding white note card. I came in with a Wink of Stella shimmer pen and just added it to the top of the pumpkin and the dark orange on the pumpkin, just to give it a little bit of shimmer. And it was killing me not to add like gems or sequins to this, but I thought simple was best here. And really that shine from the shimmer pen adds a lot. So here are the two versions. One has just the green inking, the other one has both colors. I think I like the one with the inking just on the bottom. And then I used the Much Gratitude stamp from the same stamp set for this matching envelopes. I really like to have my envelopes match my cards. Okay, now for the next example. This one kind of steps up masking a bit, but really it's quite simple if you use a few tips I share with you. So first I'm going to start with a piece of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white cardstock. I always start with that. Setting up my die cut machine as I would if I were using an embossing folder. You can use any die cut machine. Just set it up as you would for an embossing folder. This time I have my Spellbinders embossing pad down, some white cardstock, and then I'm using a Hero Arts postage die to kind of create a frame. And you can see that impressed postage looking frame that you get with that. I thought that'd be a fun kind of frame instead of just a plain rectangle. Now I've planned out my pumpkins here, and I need to do a bit of masking because I need them to overlap. I want the smallest pumpkin to be in the front, so you always start with what you want to be in the front. So I'm first going to stamp the tiny pumpkin. So I'm going to do this exactly like I did in the beginning video, where I stamp the base layer with the sun-kissed light colored ink. Then I do the second layer with the orange cream, and the third layer with the fired brick, exactly like before, just with the smaller pumpkin. So I have cut the coordinating die for this pumpkin from masking paper. Again, I'm using the negative space to kind of frame around our pumpkin. Then I can pop the pumpkin mask right on top of the pumpkin stamped image. This will protect it as we do more stamping and inking, so we're going to leave this mask on here for quite some time. This will ensure that this is front and foremost in our stamped image. Now I'm going to the next pumpkin, the one that would be sitting right behind this, and I'm going to do the stamping with this one. I'm going to do the same thing as I did at the beginning of the video. So whenever you're doing masking of several images, whatever you want to be in the front is the image you should start with. So after I've stamped this guy, I went ahead and cut from a masking paper with the coordinating die a pumpkin mask, and we'll pop that in place. And again, we're going to put this mask on and leave it here for quite some time. Then we're on to the third and final pumpkin. This is the guy that's sitting in the back and is definitely the tallest. So I'm stamping that, and notice I do the sun-kissed twice because remember how earlier I found that gave a better finished result. So I just went ahead and did it from the beginning. At this point I forgot to do the little stem thing on the top, but I'll come back and do that later. So now I'm masking this off because we're going to ink up the background. So now all the pumpkins are stamped and masked off. Before we do the inking, I need to stamp our sentiment. So I lined it up, stamped it with black pigment ink, and added clear embossing powder. Now using that same postage die, I cut a mask from some masking paper, and I'm going to line the mask up with the embossed edge. So now we can ink up in the center. This time I wanted a softer look, so I decided to use Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink. This is like a soft, creamy yellow that's just gorgeous. I'm inking up heavy towards the outside, but then not inking much at all towards the center. And that'll give us kind of a glow behind the pumpkins and help to draw attention to them. Now remember, we have these large masks on our stamped pumpkins. They are bigger than the stamp because we use the coordinating dies. So there will be a white halo around all of the pumpkins. But I really like that look. I think it's fun when you do masking to have that white trim. If you don't want that white trim, you just want to cut a mask that is the perfect same size as your stamped image. So there you can see the embossed edge of the postage die, the inking on the inside, and then I also added a little wink of Stella shimmer to the pumpkins, as I did before, and a few little yellow gems from Lucy's cards. So in these 3 pumpkin cards, I shared some tips for embossing and masking, and also for using coordinating dies to mask a stamped image. I did want to show you just quickly one bonus card because I thought this little doggy was just too cute, and this sentiment that says lots of love during this difficult time is great to encourage anyone. So I use the Sunny Studio Pet Sympathy stamp set. In here there's cats and dogs, and there are little angel wings and a halo that you can add, along with a lot of sweet sentiments. Now instead of using masking paper, this time I'm using this large roll of Post-it tape. So the entire back of this is sticky and it's great for masking. So I just put it right onto my cutting plate and I can cut any mask from this. It's, I think, a little more cost effective since so much Post-it tape comes on a roll. So I wanted to recommend that also. So I wanted to show you also a little masking trick here. I have a little stamped and colored dog here, and I'm placing a mask right over him just like I did earlier with the pumpkins. I also am using that same Post-it tape to mask off a line. So I'm using my grid lines on my work surface to help me line this up straight. I'm just going to mask right on top of our masked dog. And now below this piece of masking tape, I'm going to apply some green Distress Oxide ink. I really like using Post-it tape for masking off straight lines like this. It really works well, and you can reuse them a few times. So now I want to do blue, but I want to have a little gap of white. So I lined up the piece so it goes just a little bit higher than the green piece. And now I'm going to apply some Broken China Distress Oxide ink. So this mask slightly is higher than the grass. So there's a little white line between the green and the white. I really like that white line between inked areas, keeps it crisp and prevents anything from overlapping. And remember, we will have a white halo around our dog here because the coordinating die is bigger than the stamped image. Got a little fingerprint, so I never fear. I'm just going to go ahead and erase that with my sand eraser. I did trim this down, and this is a miniature card. The final card is 3.5 by 5. I'm using some ebony black Nuvo drops to add really great dimension and darkness to the eyes and to the nose on this. And then I'll add glossy accents onto the little red heart that I colored. By the way, sorry my lighting changed a lot this day. It was a cloudy day with rain, and it would go from sun to cloud, and my lighting just struggled. Okay, so once the little eyes were dry, I went in with the white Nuvo drops, put some on some scrap paper, picked up a little bit of the white with a pin, and I'm dropping little white dot onto each of the black ones. And this gives us lots of dimension, and it kind of pulls you in towards his eyes. So there's another example of doing masking. So I did some masked lines, and I used Post-it tape instead. I did create a little matching envelope with a little paw print, and there we have the final card. Very simple, and I'm hoping that this will make someone smile. So there you have it, a few different ways to do masking. I think masking is one of the best stamping techniques. I hope you give these a try. All the supplies are linked below in that YouTube description as always, or go to my blog where I have lots of photos that show better all the dimension and inking on these. In the middle are 2 other videos you might want to check out, and if you haven't done so, please hit that subscribe button so you can check out future videos. Thanks for stopping by. See you soon.